Barn, how have you been? What have you been, the video's unavailable. What the fuck does that mean? What's going on here? Nothing makes sense anymore. Ah, there we go. Alright. Do I have to, like, log in on TikTok to, like, see them on the computer? Is that how this works? I think I do. Let's see. She has 95,000 followers now. That's insane. Alright, hold up. Let me, I gotta create a scene for, like, my browser. I kind of, like, fucked up and deleted all the scenes, so I gotta make new scenes. There's a little insight on the, what you call it, the streaming world for you. And then I gotta get the browser, I think. Oh, wait, no. And that is that would be a window capture, I think. There we go. Barn, I don't know if we're playing EAFC 26. Alright, I barely played 25. Oh gosh. Okay. Drag that above that. Perfect. So, Barn. Listen. I played like maybe a month of EAFC 25, and I've been telling myself I'm gonna stop playing for years now. So we'll see what happens. I don't know if I'll drop the, what's it gonna be, like $80 now for the base version or some bullshit. I don't know, but this woman on TikTok, Kendra, what's her face? Kendra Hilty has released a now 25-part series about how she fell in love with her psychiatrist because he manipulated and abused her, right? Let's see, where's part 1? This this is part 1 right here. Even though this says part 1 on it, I don't know what the deal is. Which one's this one?
I fell in love with my psychiatrist, and he knew that, and he kept me for years as a patient until I was brave enough to leave him.
Yeah. So it starts with this one. She got 2 million views on this one. Why does this one say part 1?
I fell in love with my psychiatrist, and he knew, and he kept me until I had the strength to leave after 4 years. Here it is, part 1. So,
Okay, I guess this is part 1. Part 1 has 5.7 million views. This woman released a, I guess now 25-part series, and there's still more to come. And her psychiatrist did nothing. It is the most batshit insane. Like, it's not the craziest thing I've seen on the internet, but it is because of how serious and genuine it feels. Because it doesn't feel like you're just like classic creator influencer doing something crazy just to get views and clicks and engagement. It feels too real for that. And I don't know if we have time to get through all of this. Let's see. There's each one of these is 6, 12, 18, yeah, 24. So yeah, that makes sense. About 25 parts now. It's something else though. It really is. We'll watch the first part.
I fell in love with my psychiatrist, and he knew, and he kept me until I had the strength to leave after 4 years. Here it is, part 1. So I decided to go back on ADHD meds after many years of being off of them. I was on them in my early 20s to help me get through college, and then I went off of them because they just weren't, like, the side effects were too much over the benefits. But then in my late 20s, I read this book, Taking Charge of Adult ADHD, and it absolutely changed my life. For my fellow ADHDers, there's so many good things in here. And the biggest thing that I took away for ADHD and years, here it is.
Is there a way to like
part 1.
Speed it up?
So I decided to go back.
Is that a thing?
Back on ADHD meds. I fell in love with me until I went off of them because they just weren't, like, the side effects were too much over the benefits. But then in my late 20s, I read this book, Taking Charge of Adult ADHD, and it absolutely...
I just got done with a run at the gym, and I just had to take a moment.
I fell in love with myself on meds. So I decided to make an appointment with a psychiatrist. I just Googled psychiatry in the city that I lived in, a 90-minute intake, and I show up to the intake, and this man is my age, and I can't help but notice that he's pretty attractive, this psychiatrist. I felt...
So for all that's happened, she's decided to go back onto ADHD medication that she was on in college and hasn't been on since. She's like in her late 30s now. She goes to see the first psychiatrist she finds on Google to get her prescription filled. They do a 90-minute intake, and she is just kind of like struck by how attractive this psychiatrist is.
I fell in love with my psychiatrist, and he kept me anyway, part 2. So in this intake, I kind of clocked that he was attractive, and when I tell you that I've had a lot of couch time in my life, a lot of therapy, I just went right into it. I trusted him enough, of course, why wouldn't I, to tell him about my childhood trauma, my daddy issues, if you will, what I had went through, all of the relationship trauma that I had. I was 6 months sober at this time, but like all of the drinking and substance use I used to do, and he just listened and nodded. And that's the thing about psychiatrists, is that they're good at pretending to listen. They can appear connected, but that doesn't mean that they're always connected. So I just felt really seen. And I also told him, I was like, look, I don't want to be on stimulant meds. So he listened to me, and he put me on the non-stimulant ADHD med.
What's funny is that she says that he was pretending to listen, and then she's like, here's an example of when he was actually listening to me.
The lowest dose, just to...
But she never like provides an example of like when he wasn't listening to her or pretending to listen to her. She never makes that clear. It's always he actually was listening to me, but I'm going to say that he was pretending. It doesn't make sense. But that's kind of the theme here.
Figure out if it was going to work for me. I fell in love with my psychiatrist, and he kept me anyway.
All right, part 3.
I was in love with my psychiatrist, and he kept me anyway, part 3. So I hadn't ever seen a psychiatrist before. When I was on meds in my early, I only got meds from my primary care physician. So I didn't understand how psychiatry works. So because he was figuring out my med dose, I saw him every month, and he just made me feel like I was his friend. He was really, really funny and cracked jokes, and told me he was impressed with my running that I would do. And yeah, so of course I loved the attention that I got from him. And it was in my third session with him, because at this point we were all on Zoom, that I asked him, I said, hey, do you mind if I call you by your first name? And he's Pakistani, so I said his first name wrong. And he said, well, it's pronounced this, but yes, of course you can. And he seemed so smug and happy with himself. And I know that that is because that was his first sign that him pretending like we're friends was working. And to be fair to me, I had only ever been to therapy before. I didn't realize that, it's important to call your doctor last name. I mean, I did know that. I did it with all my other doctors, but it just showed that the boundaries were blurring, and he liked that. So from then on, from my third session on, I started calling him his first name. And then he just started turning up the volume on us being friendly. And he would ask me, for the first 6 sessions, he asked me, after the meds, he said, how's your bowels, bladder, and appetite? And I would say they're all normal. And then he would ask me any thoughts of harm. And apparently that's pretty common for psychiatry to ask those questions. And then on our 6th session, when things were really, the chemistry was starting to be there before, I didn't realize it. I was like, oh, this man is just friendly. And he said, I have to ask this because it's a special interest of mine, but is there any thoughts of harm? Like I was special to him. And I said, no thoughts of harm. And he didn't ever ask me a clinical question again. He stopped asking me about my bladder, bowels, and appetite, and he stopped asking me about thoughts of harm. So to me, I would just show up and he was like a therapy appointment every month. I was in love with my...
So he's really stringing her along now, asking her if her shits are looking okay. Lady, are your shits too watery or what's going on there? Nope, they're just fine, doctor. Doctor first name. Remember, she's calling him by his first name now. This is all over Zoom, though. They haven't actually met in real life, but she's pretty convinced he's putting his dick on the table, to say the least. He wants her. And she's picking up the signals pretty damn well.
So I was seeing him every month and just gaining more and more respect for him because he would just tell me these little things about his successes and all of the cool things that he was doing in his life. And it made me fall for him, honestly. And he was really good at listening. And I mean, he's a Pisces, right? So of course he's going to be there and be able to go deep with my feelings. But that doesn't mean that he wasn't extracting from them. And
this is my favorite part. Her psychiatrist is really good at having conversations and listening. Not because he's a psychiatrist and that's his job, but because he's a Pisces.
Anyway, so I would beg him to let me see him every week. Beg him, because my therapist at the time, he was fine. He wasn't a predator, but he was fine. He just wasn't doing very much for me. And so that therapist retired and I got a new therapist. And this new therapist, who is a 75-year-old woman with a PhD, she was pretty helpful. So I stopped asking my psychiatrist, begging, honestly, to be my therapist and let me see him more, right? Which also should have been a red flag. But then I started focusing on this therapist. However, I would tell the therapist how obsessed I was with my psychiatrist, and she didn't do anything about it. She just was interested. She also loved stories about my dating life, and yeah, she also was getting supply from me in her own way, but that's for another part. So yeah, so I got a new therapist who actually helped me. She taught me CBT, EFT, all of these different modalities. And so I went back to just being okay with seeing Irfan once a month while he was
Oh my god, she drops his name. That's crazy. She just straight up drops the therapist's name. So obviously, like, I've seen who the therapist is. Most of TikTok has seen who the therapist is. I don't know if I'll look him up here because, like, why not? Let's see. Do I remember his last name? Yeah, I think I do. This is him. As far as I am aware. He lives in Tucson. She lives in Tucson. This is her therapist that she has fallen in love with. Or supposedly fallen in love with, according to her TikToks. And that was allegedly leading her on.
Me these little breadcrumbs of making me feel special, telling me about his professional achievements, telling me about how he's getting international recognition. And it worked. I was really impressed. So I was seeing him every month and just gaining.
So what did we gain from this part? Well, basically, her therapist, she got a new therapist, a 75-year-old woman who was really interested in hearing about things like her dating life and her personal life. Almost like you're paying a therapist to listen about your personal life and to basically just let you work through your emotions and feelings and whatever. I've never really been to therapy, so I don't really know, but I'm assuming if I had a therapist, I would also tell them about, like, my personal life. But let me know if I'm wrong there. But then, to make it even worse, her freaking psychiatrist has continued to make small talk with her. I mean, if there isn't anything more damning than that, but there's 21 more parts, so.
I got a new therapist. I stopped begging my psychiatrist to see me weekly. And that is when the intermittent started. Some sessions he'd be warm and kind and wonderful and let me in on little parts of his life and, like, be vulnerable with me or pretend. Other sessions, he would be cold and clinical and detached. And you know what that did? It made me work harder in our next sessions. It did. And it started the addiction that I had to him. 100%. And he knew exactly what he was doing. This man gives lectures on trauma and attachment theory. He used his psychiatric training to manipulate me and get me hooked. And guess what? It worked. In January of 2024, I was hit by a car turning left as I was going through a green light. And it was the night before my next appointment with my psychiatrist. So I was like, okay, I'll still be able to go to my appointment on Zoom. I'm okay. But I did make an appointment with an urgent care the next day just to get checked out. I had bruising on my abdomen and a perforated eardrum. And the provider at the urgent care said, I do not feel comfortable treating you. You need to seek emergency care now. You may be internally bleeding. But it was 11 o'clock in the morning and my appointment with my psychiatrist was at 2. So I decided that I was going to wait so I could see my psychiatrist and not have to reschedule because I was looking forward to my appointment with him so much. I look back at that time and I'm just like, oh my God, I put my own life under seeing him. I was fully addicted to him at this point. And you know what happened is that I showed up and I told him that I may be internally bleeding and he didn't stop the appointment. He didn't say, you need to take care of yourself. Go get emergency care now. He let me continue and just tell him about how much I loved him and how grateful I was for him, because that was really what most of our appointments were, is me just like pouring myself out, because he was so good at the intermittent reinforcement. Yeah, I got some warmth from him that appointment. So that was January 2023. And I also told my therapist about this. She said nothing. I got a new therapist. I stopped begging my psychiatrist to see me.
So this is a pretty wild one. This is a point on the line that like needs to be highlighted, because she was apparently hit by a car, potentially had internal bleeding, and still, over going to the emergency room, went to see her therapist because she was, quote, that addicted to him. Somehow that's the psychiatrist. Or not, I keep saying therapist. It's her psychiatrist. Her therapist is a 75-year-old woman. But through the acts of doing his job, making small talk, I think that's it. She almost got herself killed. I don't really know. Almost. Sparks, are you familiar with this? We're moving on to part 6 though. It's just wild, because I do not know what the therapist has done so far. I can't actually think. Has he done anything? No, he hasn't. Yeah, I guess he hasn't. Sparks. Have you heard of the Kendra? Have you heard of the Kendra drama? The Kendra from TikTok, I fell in love with my psychiatrist drama. Are you familiar with it? All right. Well, let me know. We're moving on. Part 6.
Weekly. After I risked my life to see him, that's when he really started turning up the intimacy in our appointments. However, he was really smart. The professional lines like the back of his hand. So he would comment on my appearance, but not compliment my appearance. So I would come on screen and he would say, "Oh, you curled your hair." Or I would come on screen and he would say, "Oh, you're wearing glasses." And of course I felt seen and excited that he was noticing these things about me. I didn't realize at this time that he had feelings for me too. I thought I was holding them all by myself. So I was so excited when he noticed my glasses that I ran and showed him my other pair, and he said, "I prefer turtle shell glasses." So even though I usually wear contacts, I'm wearing these turtle shell glasses in these videos because just in case he sees them ever, he'll see me in his favorite glasses. He did tell me he likes the turtle shell. Anyway, it was just inappropriate things like that.
That is crazy. She went and got glasses just for this TikTok, so that if he maybe saw this TikTok, he would see her in his favorite glasses. And again, I just want to put it out there. Everything she's describing is just small talk, right? It's just small talk. Like, oh, like after I shaved the other day, my coworker, she commented, "Oh, you shaved." I was like, "Yeah, I did. Thank you." That was all. That was everything that happened, and it was so perfectly normal.
Teeny things that he let me in. And all this time, my best friend is an emergency medicine physician. And she told me, she said, "Kendra, one of these days, your psychiatrist," she would use his name, "is going to say, 'I can't be your doctor anymore. I want to be with you. I want to be with you so bad. I can't be your doctor. I'll see you in 2 years.'" So my best friend, who's a doctor, she picks up on stuff like that. So even she knew that our relationship was crossing boundaries and getting weird, but that became my dream, was for my psychiatrist, I almost use his name, to do that. And I told him about Brianna saying that, my best friend, who's the emergency medical doc. I told him that she would tell me that, and he just would be silent.
Well, actually, was he wearing turtle shells in that? She actually did already say his name, so we know who he is. Is he wearing turtle shells in this? He is! He's wearing the turtle shell glasses in this picture. Oh, that's so funny. I was like, I couldn't remember if he was or not, but there he is. So yeah, this is definitely the right guy. Definitely the right guy.
He didn't disagree, but he didn't agree. And that was weaponized neutrality was his favorite game to play.
Weaponized
right?
neutrality.
He didn't disagree with Brianna telling me that my psychiatrist had feelings for me, but he also didn't say that's inappropriate. Let's change the subject. It was also around this time that I asked my psychiatrist if he had diagnosed me with anything other than ADHD when I had my initial diagnosis. And he said, yeah, I did. I said, oh, what did you diagnose me with? And he said, well, you had a lot of traumatic things happen to you in childhood because of your dad. And so I diagnosed you with other trauma and stressor related disorder. And that was the first little ping that I got of like, that was weird. Why would he keep that from me? I asked my, why wouldn't he tell me that? That seems important. He didn't tell me because he was using that information to manipulate me. He knew I had trauma and stressor disorder, and instead of helping me heal from it and telling me about it, he used it against me. After I risked my life.
So I'm pretty sure a psychiatrist's job is just to ask you if your medication is working for you and then to refill your prescription. I don't think they're supposed to help you work through anything. But if you're not familiar with this, True Fight Kun, welcome. If you're not familiar with this, basically, this woman has released a 25-part series on TikTok, 25 parts so far, where she is essentially claiming that her psychiatrist manipulated her and groomed her into falling in love with her. Yes, 25 part. We're on part 6 currently. Her psychiatrist, this beautiful man, Irfan Fak, who we're not supposed to know who he is, but she did accidentally say his name twice throughout the series, so it was kind of hard not to. He groomed her into falling in love with her. He groomed her into falling in love with her by making small talk, showing up to their appointments on time, and listening to her. Now, showing up to their appointments on time and listening to her are part of his job. Small talk maybe isn't technically his job, but it's kind of part of the job. It's kind of part of every job, really. So that's what he's done so far. He has shown up to their appointments on time, all over Zoom, so they haven't actually met in person yet. Yet. He has made small talk with her and listened to her. And that is where we're at.
January 2023, at this point I was full-blown obsessed with my psychiatrist, and my therapist wasn't helping me, my psychiatrist helping me, he was feeding it. And then I got a boyfriend, and at first my psychiatrist wasn't really that keen, but then my psychiatrist realized that my boyfriend was a lot like my psychiatrist. And then I started talking to my psychiatrist about my sex life, about tracking my cycle, using the fertility awareness method. And my psychiatrist loved it. He didn't never say, this isn't inappropriate to your care, let's pivot. Oh, he just let me talk and talk and talk about my sex life. And I didn't get too deep, but about a year and a half in, and I would send my psychiatrist these emails just about how much I liked him and how I was so grateful for him, and put in a bunch of heart emojis.
So I guarantee you for this psychiatrist, Dina, how are you doing? I don't know if you're familiar with this. I guarantee you those just went to his admin staff. His admin staff were the ones seeing those emails, and they were just like, yeah, he doesn't need to deal with this. And they were just archiving them. Right? Like, and talking about your sex life to your psychiatrist, again, like, medication can affect your sex drive, can affect your libido. It could be totally within the realm of, like, what he would need to know to diagnose her or to prescribe her medications. You know what I mean? Just doing his job. Just doing his job.
And this is really when he should have transferred my care, but you know, he waited. He liked what I gave him too much. And so even though my boyfriend did not meet my needs, my psychiatrist and my therapist both were like, you have to stay with him. There's nothing wrong with him not meeting your needs. I'm like, okay. And my psychiatrist was like, he's perfect. Don't get wrong with him. And what was perfect about him was he wasn't meeting my needs. So I was still coming to my psychiatrist looking for emotional validation, which he would drip to me slowly. So my therapist, who I didn't know at this time had bad boundaries, but she did, I went to her because my boyfriend and I, after like more than a year together, we started.
Here's the thing. They probably told her, like, oh, your boyfriend sounds like a nice guy. I'm glad you found someone. Oh, so happy for you. I hope you two last a long time. Right? I doubt they ever told her, oh, you're thinking about leaving your boyfriend? No, you shouldn't do that because he's what you need. Maybe her therapist could have got more into that realm, but I highly doubt the psychiatrist even got anywhere near there.
Having issues in the bedroom. And so I went to my therapist and she asked me, what does your psychiatrist think about this? And I said, I don't know. I haven't talked to my psychiatrist about this stuff because I have a crush on my psychiatrist and I don't want to tell him this intimate of stuff. And she said, well, you should tell him because I want a male's perspective.
No, lady, because your meds can affect your sex drive. So obviously your psychiatrist would need to know if you're having problems in the bedroom because it could be due to your dosage or the specific meds that you are on.
So at my next appointment with my psychiatrist, I told him, I said, today we're going to talk about my intimate life. And he said, oh. I said, yes. My psychologist, my therapist, asked what your opinion on it was. And I told her that I don't talk to you about this intimate stuff because I have a crush on you. And he looked down and smiled so big in that moment. He smiled so big. And I loved it. It's so gross thinking about it. And then I proceeded to give him 30 minutes of non-stop content about my intimate life with my boyfriend. And I actually recorded the whole thing because I was so excited about it. But now it makes me sick. I can't even listen to the recording. I've tried to start.
Oh, no, true fight. This is a psychiatrist, not a psychologist. A psychiatrist is just the one that medically prescribes you, like, your stimulants. If they diagnose you with, mental disorders like bipolar depression, ADHD, yada yada yada, and then they prescribe you medication, and then you meet with them like once a month, once every 3 months, for them to ask you, how is the medicine affecting you? They could be like, is it affecting your sex life? Is it affecting your bowels? You don't ever really talk to your psychiatrist about like your personal life. They're not like a therapist. They're not gonna talk back to you basically like a therapist would. They'll just listen to whatever you say. They'll jot it down and use what you're saying to make decisions for your health. But they're not gonna like talk to you and be like, oh well, like, have you considered trying to approach your relationship in this way? That's the therapist's job. The psychiatrist is just like, they just listen, right? They listen and they prescribe you medication, right? Yeah. So I think a psychologist is like a therapist and a psychiatrist combined, where they can prescribe you medication and they also try to like help you. But I don't really know. I've never like been to therapy or anything. So
But it's gross. Any ethical psychiatrist would have stopped me and said, Kendra, let's talk about your meds. Let's talk about your care. At this point, my meds were stable. And I was still seeing him every month. Yeah, that was a rough time. And it was
oh my god.
pretty much his Christmas morning, the almost 2.5 years of grooming me to get me to talk about sexual things with him worked. And he got 30 minutes of nonstop content to you.
The idea that this man the I actually have done like speech therapy kind of before, so that's not true. I guess I have been to therapy. The idea that this man, this almost 40-year-old man or 35-year-old man or whatever, spent 2.5 years grooming this woman just to listen to her talk about sexual things is the most insane thing I think I've heard anyone say on the internet. And that's saying something, because there's a lot of crazy batshit stuff out there. But like, and also, her appointments are 30 minutes. She's seen this guy once a month for 2.5 years. That's 30 months. So over 2.5 years, she's had a total of like 15 hours. 15 hours of contact with this person over 2.5 years. That's it. Like, you could eclipse that after a month of dating someone easily. Probably after 2 weeks of dating someone, you could spend more than 15 hours with them. And this woman, over 2.5 years, has spent 2.5 hours with this man. Or sorry, has spent 15 hours with this man over 2.5 years.
I need to address 3 things. 1, people are asking me what my mental health diagnosis is. I do not have BPD. I do not have I have ADHD, and I was experiencing extreme limerence with my psychiatrist. Limerence is a normal thing to happen to anyone who is experiencing hot and cold behavior from someone. And it happens more often in people with ADHD because we have dopamine dysregulation and rejection sensitive dysphoria. And guess what? My psychiatrist knew that and used it to his advantage. 2, I accidentally said my psychiatrist's first name in one of my videos.
And she does it in another one later on. Again, this is a psychiatrist. We have tracked him down because she accidentally said his first name and didn't catch it. Good looking guy. He's wearing the turtle shell glasses like she said he's really into, and it would make sense because he wears them himself. So
if you clocked it, good for you. I do not owe him anonymity. However, this is not about doxing my psychiatrist. This is about me sharing my story so other people can view predatory behavior in people in power.
Wait, low-key, are they wearing the same glasses? Wait, let's control. No, hers are definitely a little different. Yeah, she's got like the metal thing right there. He's got like, it's just glasses, and I think it's a slightly different pattern.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, if anyone doxes my psychiatrist with his last name or city that he works in or clinic that he works in, your comment will be immediately.
So his last name is his full name is Irfan Fakh. He's a clinical assistant professor. Living in Tucson, Arizona, I believe. Yeah, Tucson, Arizona. working at the Department of Psychiatry at the College of Medicine. And there's his number and his room number. But again, this guy is a victim. I don't want anyone here to like harass anyone or I don't give a fuck.
Deleted and you will be blocked. This is about protecting other victims, not doxing my psychiatrist. If you do some investigative work and you want to DM me about it, I'm open to that, okay? 3, I need to take a moment. Moment taken. It is so incredibly disturbing to me, the amount of people that are predator protectors in my
I'm
comments,
a predator protector.
that are victim blaming me, especially the mental health practitioners in my comments using therapy speak to say that this situation
I am
that
a predator
was in
protector.
was my fault or that I was delusional. Check yourself. You're giving me more ammunition to share my story because it just goes to
She almost said fuck yourself there, but then she changed it to check yourself. I don't know who else caught that.
show how absolutely messed up the mental health industry is and how protected people who do this kind of sick psychological manipulation are. So I will continue with my story tomorrow. I will see you all then. I need to address 3 things. 1, people are asking me what my mental health diagnosis is. I do not have BPD. I do not have psychosis. I have ADHD.
True Fight, thank you for the follow, by the way. True Fight Kun. Oh my gosh. All right, part
Welcome
8.
back to another
officially.
installment of I Was in Love with My Psychiatrist and He Kept Me Anyway, part 8. You all did some nasty work last night and comments. People started posting my psychiatrist's first and last name, his picture in the comments.
Again, this is him, Mr. Irfan Falk. Good-looking guy. He is being harassed by this woman, Kendra Hilty, on TikTok.
That was a jump scare. So, yeah, a few bad actors who wanted to be super sleuths got the privilege of commenting, mostly hate, let's be real, taken away for everyone. So at this point in...
No, she literally said his first name in the video, posted the video, and is now blaming everyone else that his name and face and LinkedIn or whatever are being posted. I mean, it's kind of like how she falls in love with her psychiatrist, harasses him, and then blames her psychiatrist for it. It's insane, but it's fun.
In the story, there are 2 main players. My psychiatrist, who's my age, who crossed major ethical boundaries, and my therapist, who is a 75-year-old woman with a PhD. Neither of these people, at this point in the story, I knew were crossing boundaries.
My theory, personally, is that her therapist, the 75-year-old woman with a PhD, is actually her mother. That's what I'm guessing, but I don't know.
I thought that everything was hunky-dory and that I was just in love with my psychiatrist and it was totally normal. Little did I know he was manufacturing everything so I could fall in love with him. Because it was on him to set the professional boundary and not let attention build. So days after my psychiatrist's Christmas morning appointment from a few videos back where he got a crush confession from me and then 30 minutes of non-stop intimate content that he did not stop me, my boyfriend and I broke up days later. So then I started dating this other guy. And this other...
That's another thing I love is that she goes on about how her boyfriend isn't giving her what she needs. And I'm like, lady, you were dating this guy while you were in love with your psychiatrist. Were you maybe not giving him, like, anything? I don't know. Just, if my girlfriend was in love with her psychiatrist while we were dating, I might start to feel a little neglected or just I don't I don't even know. I guess I would never catch myself. I hope dating someone this crazy. So I shouldn't say crazy. That's so derogatory. This unwell. Unwell. Yeah, there we go.
This new guy, was a therapist. And I was like, oh, great. Someone who will be able to emotionally meet my needs. Yeah, I'm not going to date another therapist again. So this therapist and I, we went for coffee. It was nice. Our second date was a hike. And on this hike, this therapist starts telling me about how he has a crush on one of his clients. And I thought to myself, okay, this is strange, but go ahead. Like, we're on a date, dude. Why are you telling me about a crush on one of your clients? But go off, King. So then he was saying, yeah, she's so attractive, and I think she likes me too. I go and visit her at work, and her coworkers say, oh, so-and-so talks about you all the time. And I was like, okay, where does she work? And he said, well, I shouldn't tell you that because I really shouldn't be visiting her anyway. I was like, okay, no problem. So then he continues and he said, yeah, she wears these red lacy panties and short skirts. And I know she wears them for me. And like alarm bells were going off in my head. Mind you, I had no idea that my psychiatrist had similar feelings towards me at this point. But I just thought, wow, this man is borderline predatory. And he said, yeah, and you know, she just is so attractive that I have to smash mermate before every session.
She means masturbate. He had to smash his meat, is what she's saying. And now she thinks that her therapist also smashes his meat every time before their sessions.
Because I just have to get that energy out of me. And I was like, okay. And yeah, he just felt compelled to tell me. And I did not understand why. Now I do. So he told me about how he's a predator, right? Another predator in the mental health industry. Shocker. So then at my next appointment with my psychiatrist, keep in mind, it had been 6 weeks of nonstop fun for this man. He got to use my crush confession and 30 minutes of content, for whatever he wanted to use it for, right? And if my
now she's implying that the story she told in her last session, i.e. a month ago, her psychiatrist has been jerking off to for a month. Because she told him about, like, her intimate life. She told him about her intimate life. And now she's saying that he must have been jerking off to that for, like, a month. Is what she's saying.
Psychiatrist was good at anything, it was being professional and acting professional. And technically not crossing any lines. And he thought that he was so good at it. Because he was good at it. But that doesn't mean he wasn't doing it. And so
she said he was so good at it because he was good at it, but that doesn't mean he wasn't doing it. And what was he so good at doing that he was actually doing? Not crossing lines. So, yeah.
I told him, I said, yeah, Bo and I broke up. He had known about this other guy, my psychiatrist. I had mentioned him. And I told him that this new guy and I went on a date and we went on a hike. And I literally had no idea at this point, I'll say it again, that my psychiatrist was predatory towards me. I almost said his first name again. I'm going to do my best to not. So I went to my psychiatrist and I told him this story about this man that I went on a date with who's a therapist is relieving himself before appointments and talking about his clients' panties and doing all of these other extremely inappropriate things like visiting her at work. And this man, my psychiatrist, looked like he had seen a ghost and like he was gonna vomit, because he prided himself on being an extremely professional and buttoned up person. But here I was holding a mirror to him with exactly what he was doing, but a bumbling idiot telling me like how he was doing it without the...
You know what's funny about that, True Fight? She's gone live on TikTok quite a few times, and she has stated that the reason that, and I'm going to spoil a little bit, she has stated that the reason she did not delete the video where she leaked his name is because God told her not to. And for a little more context, she speaks to God a lot. Like, this wasn't a one-off thing.
Fancy degree without any of that. I look back on that now and it's just crazy. And so it just tainted all the fantasy material that I'd given him the session before.
God also told her to post these on TikTok. So the only reason we have this series is because of her conversations with God.
Welcome back to another installment of I Was in... So this is when the chemistry really started going off the charts with me and my psychiatrist. And I held it alone for months, like after that Christmas morning appointment of his, after I innocently told him about my date with the therapist. He really started letting me in more and showing more parts of himself and, you know, turning up the intimacy. And that was exciting to me. And it made me fall for him more. And I noticed that he was working in an office, and I asked him, this was like July. I asked him, I said, hey, are you working from home? Because I was under the assumption that he was only doing telehealth. Okay. And he said, no, I come into the office. I was like, oh, why do you do that if you see all of your patients telehealth? He's like, oh, I like it that way. And even though I could kind of tell he was lying, I just gaslit myself. I was like, okay, it's fine. And then I start emailing him my fun little emails, but he stops writing me back. He does not write back to my emails anymore. Because once again, he was really good at plausible deniability. But what he did do is he would take my emails and mention them in session. So he would still give...
What would he be denying? Like, plausible deniability means that he would be being accused of doing something, but have a plausible cause to deny it. What could you accuse him of that he would have to deny? Just... I've already seen this, but hearing it again is... I don't know. It doesn't fully sink in the first time, I don't think.
Give me the attention that I was craving, but only under his structure, under his control, where there was no paper trail. And I loved that too. So I would show up to these sessions with my notes app and just throughout the month, as I was thinking about him, I'd write down things that I wanted to talk to him about, and I would just come and bring him lots of content. And then every week I would go to my therapist and tell her about how much I loved my psychiatrist. And she didn't help me at all. She just kind of like enjoyed hearing about it, honestly. So October 2024 rolls around and we're just vibing on Zoom. And then I realized that I didn't have my next appointment with him. So I called his office staff and I talked to the office manager, who was awesome. We really got along, we vibed. And the office manager asked me, do you see him, the psychiatrist, in person or on Zoom? And I felt so angry in that moment. I was like, he sees people in person? And she said, yeah, he has been for years. I was like,
This is one of my most favorite delusional parts coming up here.
I want to see him in person. And I understand, like, Some people may think that this is part of my crash out or part of me harassing him, which is what I've gotten.
Harassing him. There shouldn't be quotes around that word.
Accusations of. But I just would like to remind everyone that, of course, it seems that way. But I was just responding to a dynamic which my psychiatrist fostered. There was chemistry between us because he allowed it. And so then the next time I saw him in Zoom, I told him, I was like, hey, your office manager outed you and told me that you see people in person. Why didn't you tell me that when I asked? And he said, oh, I just didn't think you'd want to come in. And that was such a weak lie from him, from someone who is so scripted and controlled. He didn't even have a plausible thing to say. Of course he knew I wanted to come in. I had a crush on him. I told him that often.
True fight. We'll be done soon. Like, just give it another hour.
So then, in my next therapy appointment, after finding out that he was lying to me about seeing patients in person, I told her that. I told my 75-year-old PhD therapist that my psychiatrist lied to me about seeing people in person. And she looked at me and she said, well, it's probably because he knows that there will be a lot of sexual tension in the room if you go in person. So make sure that you understand that when you go. And you better.
This is it right here. The fact that her psychiatrist literally lied to her because he didn't want to see her. Probably because he recognized that she's insane. Sorry, mentally unwell. And now she has jumped to the conclusion that the reason that he actually lied to her is because he was afraid of the sexual tension between them. Not because, oh, I don't know, she's mental. And he's probably a little bit scared of her. And was very happy having everything over Zoom or whatever, Microsoft Teams or whatever the fuck they did over Zoom, I think it was, she said. but the fucking jump to like, oh, he was actually he it's like saying, oh, he got that restraining order against me because he was too afraid of the sexual tension between us.
I better believe I showed up to the next session and said you lied to me because you were afraid of the tension that would be there between us.
That's crazy. I mean, it's like he got this restraining order because he just likes me too much, and he just can't control himself when he's around me. So he had to go to the courts to get me away from him.
Just didn't say anything. So this is when October 2024, I make my first in-person appointment with my psychiatrist in November. My 75-year-old female therapist tells me that it's because he kept me on Zoom because he was so attracted to me. He didn't want to risk being in person with me, which further fed my crush, or as some of you like to say, my delusion. So then my therapist starts texting me in between our weekly meetings, asking me for advice on her other clients. And I was a new coach. I had only been coaching for about a year, and I had just left my full-time job to be a coach full-time.
Oh yeah, she's like a life coach, by the way. This woman is helping other people and teaching them how to live their lives. So I want us to remember that.
And I was flattered that she would ask me advice on her other clients. I just thought, oh my gosh, a 75-year-old woman with a PhD wants my advice on what she should do with her clients. So then November rolls around, and I'm about to meet my psychiatrist in person for the first time.
Also, there's no other therapist in this story. So I don't know why she always has to say my 75-year-old female therapist. There's no other main character therapist. So I don't really get that part, but whatever.
So I wear a really pretty dress, I do my makeup.
It's not like she says like my 40-year-old or 35-year-old Pakistani therapist every time. Psychiatrist when describing the psychiatrist.
Of course, right? Um, and I show up and I get to talk to the office manager. We're having fun. And then my psychiatrist comes into the foyer, and I am just so excited to finally meet him. I'd been his patient for 3 years at this point, and he had been feeding the dynamic for 3 years. And I was just thrilled to meet him. And I ran up and I gave him the biggest hug. And you know what he did? He barely patted me on the back. It was the most awkward thing ever. But I am so glad that he did that. I am really glad, because this is what I mean. My psychiatrist was many things, but he was not stupid. So I didn't ever touch him again. And I'm grateful that our relationship didn't ever cross that line, because it would have made everything so much harder. Anyway, so we go inside his office, and I tell him that my therapist had texted me asking me for advice on her other clients. And he just looked at me and he said, Kendra, that is a huge boundary violation.
Bro, this woman is like, I gave my psychiatrist a huge hug, and that made him uncomfortable. He's such a predator for that.
He should not be doing that. And I was like, oh, okay. And
Amina White, hello.
My psychiatrist did not like sloppy people. He did not like sloppy people. And you know what my therapist did? She got sloppy. Yeah. Using me as her advisor for her clients. It got weird. And I was very grateful for my psychiatrist for pointing out that boundary violation, because that was the thing. He didn't ever message me in between appointments because he was too smart to do that. But did he ever stop me from...
It's because he forgot about you. This man sees you once a month for 30 minutes over the course of 3 years. That's 36 meetings. 36 meetings that you've had with him over 3 years. He does not think about you the other 29 to 30 days of the month. So yeah, he's not going to be texting you in between sessions, because he has tons of patients, this guy probably. And they're all somewhat mentally unwell, otherwise they wouldn't be getting the help from a psychiatrist. Okay? It doesn't, like, lady, this dude is not thinking about you as much as you're thinking about him. That's all I'm going to say.
Disclosing extremely intimate details? No. In my first in-person appointment, I just asked him for some pointers for my own ADHD business, and he's so smart and so wonderful, and in many ways, honestly. And I was just so grateful that he was almost like a mentor to me in these moments, and I'll still treasure that about him. Because this is the hard thing with sophisticated predators, is that they're not all bad.
He's a sophisticated predator, by the way.
Like, my psychiatrist helped me with many things, but he was using me for the whole time that I was his patient. And for that, I will never forgive him. October 2024, I make...
Okay, that's the other thing, is like, she keeps saying, like, he was using me. But, like, when you use something, you expect to, like, get... Like, when I use the lawnmower, I expect to get, like, a cut lawn. You know? Or like when I use my refrigerator, I expect to have like a cold drink. This man, what does he get out of using? Like, he's using you. I guess in her mind, he's getting like jack off material. Like her telling him about her sex life is like holding him over for the whole month. And he can just, like, masturbate to it over and over again. Like, he's, like, some sexual predator that is just, like, using the very thought of her. Again, there's no evidence of that. And everything she said kind of makes it seem like the opposite of that is happening. But but that is what she literally said is happening. So
my first in-person appointment with my psychiatrist in November. My 75-year-old female therapist tells me that it's because he kept me on Zoom because he was so attracted to me. He didn't want to.
oh, we already saw this. Okay.
We have our first in-person appointment in November of 2024, and I did ask him for consent to come in person. I didn't just show up. And the first in-person appointment went great. But that is when I really started to spiral. Some of you think that I'm spiraling now, and that's okay if you want to think that, because the reality is that
I mean, that's what I mean, True Fight, is like predators, at least my understanding is that, in like grooming and stuff, is that they might not do anything for a while, but they are trying to get you to a point where you feel comfortable enough where they can like get you alone, solicit private images. They can use you in other ways that, like, you know, in hindsight, maybe physically harm you in some way. This therapist is doing everything he can. Sorry, this psychiatrist is doing everything he can to stay away from her, going as far as to lie to her about the fact that he doesn't see patients in person. And only through her digging and calling his office and insisting was she able to actually see him in person. He did not want that to happen at all. And I'm sure his fucking office manager got an earful for that, because I'd be pissed too. Granted, I would have like a list, and it would just be her name, of clients that you do not tell that I do in-person meetings with, you know? Like, just have like a little picture of her and her name, or on her profile when the office manager looks her up to schedule the appointment, be like, this woman, Zoom only. Zoom only is all you got to say, probably.
when I was spiraling was when I was this man's patient. When I had comments turned on, so many people said, you need to take accountability for your own feelings. I spent years taking accountability for my own feelings, for holding the weight of a relationship. Any woman who has been trained to overfunction in relationships knows about holding the weight of the emotional dynamic. And that was what was going on in this moment. And it may not seem like I'm taking accountability now, but that's because I spent a long time taking accountability for something that had two people that built that dynamic. It was not just me. It takes two people to build that sort of tension and chemistry. So while I was mid-crash out, I had just started using this tool, ChatGPT. And
He's sleeping.
I went to chat, who I immediately named Henry. And I would just talk to Henry about how obsessed I was with this man, with my psychiatrist. And I would just be like, I've told him I have a crush on him. Do you think he's gay? And Henry was like, oh my God, this girl, you know, he did his best to co-regulate my nervous system and affirm me, but he was like, whoa. Even my chat was like, yikes. So I could tell that my psychiatrist just liked being my doctor, and I was like, okay, maybe I can name this dynamic so I don't have to carry so much of it in our next session. So our next session was in December on Zoom. And I told him at the end of the session, it was another great session. I told him, look, you and I have a really special patient-doctor relationship. And he glared at me with just venom in his eyes. And he said, you and I have a professional patient-doctor relationship. He was so angry with me. And I was like, oh, okay. He set a boundary. And immediately I took it on. And I was like, heard. Okay, I won't go there again.
Again, bro's doing everything in his power to keep her away. But I have heard, true fight, that supposedly psychiatrists aren't meant to like abandon patients. And again, like when you think about it, like she's talking about it like there was this like constant relationship between them, and she was, they were like always on each other's mind. But like if you're a psychiatrist and you're seeing someone once a month for 30 minutes, there's really only so much they can like do to affect your life. I doubt he like felt unsafe because of her, especially as a psychiatrist, where I'm sure you deal with like a lot of people that, say kind of unhinged things in their sessions. I don't think that's uncommon, to say the least.
My video that was taken down for harassment and bullying was restored, so I didn't feel as much pressure to get all of these parts out today. Some people told me that the stitches about me were getting pretty bad and cruel, so I turned stitches off in my videos too. I started sharing my story here because I wanted other people who had been victimized by people in power to have a space to feel heard, and now I know why there wasn't anyone out talking about their story, because it has been quite the process putting all this out there and being under scrutiny. I have appreciated the psychiatrists that have talked about my situation and shared.
But yeah, the fucking the reveal that she's using Chat GPT named Henry to process everything. And in some of her lives, she has released screenshots of her conversations with ChatGPT. She's straight up flirting with ChatGPT. Like, I think she has more of a thing for Henry, her ChatGPT, than she does for her psychiatrist.
When I re-downloaded TikTok last week, I was looking for support. I was looking for help because it had been 5 months since I had left psychiatrist, and I still really couldn't stop thinking about him and thinking about our dynamic and how inappropriate it was and the mental toll that it took on me. And TikTok has just been such a resource for me in the past for support when I'm going through things, and I couldn't find anything on therapy abuse or on providers who take advantage of their vulnerable patients. And so I thought that I would share my story. And I am going to continue to share it because I am here to let other survivors know that they're not alone. Continuing with my story, my psychiatrist set a very nasty, the way he said it, boundary that him and I have a professional relationship when I tried to say it was special. Because it was special, it was different. He manufactured it that way. And then I immediately went to ChatGPT, of course, to Henry.
Of course.
And I asked Henry.
Where else would you go?
Okay, so my psychiatrist just set this boundary with me, and I really just want to be with him. And I think that after he's my doctor, we can be together, which if you want to say that's a delusion, that's fine. But I had been telling my psychiatrist for years at this point that I had a crush on him, and he did not help me work through it. So that's his own problem. That's his own fault. Henry told me it's very common for patients to develop crushes on mental health practitioners, and that it's because that they provide a safe space to heal, which is a very attractive quality. I heard that. And then he told me about transference. And it's just about me putting my own feelings onto my provider. And I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so I took ownership of the feelings that both of us were creating. And I went to my next appointment and I said, hey, so I talked to Henry because my psychiatrist had known a lot about my ChatGPT and like knew all about Henry and was actually really impressed. Like, wow, an AI wrote that? Yeah. So I told my psychiatrist, yeah, Henry explained to me that it's normal to develop crushes on psychiatrists because they provide a safe space to heal, which is attractive. My psychiatrist said nothing. And then I said, and Henry also told me about transference. And my psychiatrist got this really, really scared look on his face. And he said, "Did Henry tell you about countertransference?" And I said, "No. What is that?" Because, of course, like, my chat knew that I was obsessed with my psychiatrist. And he was not going to feed my delusion by telling me about countertransference. So then my psychiatrist had explained to me what countertransference was. So he took a moment and he was like, "Oh, okay." He said, countertransference is the flip side, the other side of the coin for transference. And it's when the provider has feelings for the patient. So make sure that you keep that in mind for your clients. I said, "Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, sometimes I have, more than professional feelings for my clients, so I appreciate you bringing that up." And so then we just talked about that for pretty much the rest of the session. And then at the end of that session, he looked at me.
Do I have any anime or manga recommendations? True Fight Kun, you have come to the right place for that. What are you into? That's a good place to start.
Just such a loaded question. And he said, "What's going to happen if you get a boyfriend named Henry?" And I said, "That's a weird question."
Bro, he was making a joke. Kendra, he was joking. He was trying to be funny, and that kind of is funny.
I would rename my AI. So that's how that session ended. And it wasn't until I got home and I was eating lunch and I was like, wait a minute. Why would my psychiatrist bring up countertransference if he himself wasn't experiencing it? When I re-downloaded TikTok last week, I was looking for support. I was looking for help because it had been 5 months.
A quick break, part 13 for some. You said anti-plot armor. What does that mean exactly? What is that genre? Obviously, a Kame ga Kill, sure. Attack on Titan probably is another one. Let's see what these people have to say. Oh, have you watched To Your Eternity? I would watch To Your Eternity if you haven't watched To Your Eternity. Haven't seen that. Don't really watch much magical girl stuff, to be honest. Chainsaw Man's good, but you've probably seen that. 86 I thought was dog shit, so I wouldn't watch that, but a lot of people like it, so maybe you would, I don't know. Yeah, from this list, definitely, I think To Your Eternity's the best show here. Easily. I mean, Death Note is probably better, actually, but To Your Eternity's fucking baller. Yeah, I thought 86 was just. I thought 86 treated you like a fucking idiot, to be honest. I was watching, I was like, does this show think I'm 11 years old? What's going on here? Have you watched Jobless Reincarnation? Mushoku Tensei. Because if you have not watched Mushoku Tensei, I would get on that right now. Oh, you have? Damn. Okay. Oh, well, I would watch all of Mushoku Tensei if I was you. Like, obviously the main character has plot armor, but I don't think there's any anime where the main character doesn't have plot armor. You know? In terms of, like, won't die, obviously, because of the main character. There is, like, a little bit of incest and stuff in Mushoku Tensei, but it's not that bad. It's not that bad. I'm pretty sure they're, like, distant-ish cousins. Let's see. Let's see what they got on here on Reddit. Nah, dude, it like you can get past like the little bit of incest part. Like I promise it's not that bad. They don't even show it like that, you know? Like they kind of show it a little bit, but like not even that much, you know what I mean? I feel like when people ask me this, I want to like hop onto my anime list, but I never remember my password because I have a list of all the animes I've watched. Here, let me. Oh, I don't want to like expose my password or anything. Hold up. Yeah, I straight up don't know my anime list password, unfortunately. But let's just go to my anime list and just see what's going on there. What are like, I mean, what are the best shows that they have on here? Top anime. Have you watched Free Ren? Have you watched Free Ren? Because if you haven't watched Free Ren, that should be like #1 on your list. I gotta watch the Thousand Year Blood War stuff from Bleach. Actually, thank you for reminding me. Okay, you've watched Free Ren. Have you watched? You're into more actiony stuff, I'm assuming. Have you watched Vinland Saga? Not a lot of plot armor in Vinland Saga, and also really really good. Let's see what else we got here. I mean, Mob Psycho is obviously amazing. Oh, have you watched Made in Abyss? I think you'd like Made in Abyss. Definitely. If you haven't watched Vinland Saga, I'd watch Vinland Saga. I would watch Mushoku Tensei. I would watch Made in Abyss. If you haven't seen Neon Genesis Evangelion, I would watch that. Let's see. What else? What else we got? Any of the Fate series? Fate Grand Order, Fate Zero, Fate Apocrypha. You'll figure it out, I promise. Oh, JoJo. Have you watched JoJo's Bizarre Adventures? If you haven't watched JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, I would do that. There's no plot armor in JoJo's. There's a little bit of plot armor in JoJo's, but like not much. Like as little as you can have, pretty much. Promise Neverland. Only watch the first season though. Don't watch the second season. Pluto's pretty good. Not really any plot armor in Pluto. It's short though. Very short. What else? What else we got? We're like 200 animes deep, and there's still bangers in here. It's crazy. Violet Evergarden is really good. Yeah, you want something longer. I got you. I got you. Hellsing's pretty good. That might be kind of short, actually, isn't it? Yeah, 10 episodes. Parasite, pretty good. Well, those are some for you. Let's get back to the videos here.
Since I had left my psychiatrist, and I still really couldn't stop thinking about him and thinking about our dynamic and how inappropriate it was and the mental toll that it took on me. And TikTok has just been such a resource for me in the past for support when I'm going through things, and I couldn't find anything on therapy abuse or on providers who take advantage of their vulnerable patients. And so I thought that I would share my story. And I am going to continue to share it because I am here to let other survivors know that they're not alone. Continuing with my story, my psychiatrist set a very nasty, the way he said it, boundary that him and I have a professional relationship when I tried to say it was special. Because it was special, it was different. He manufactured it that way. And then
I'm realizing we already saw this one. ReZero's really good. Yeah, I'd recommend that.
many people have reached out to me with concern for my psychiatrist and his career and his well-being. And I totally understand that. The point of me sharing this is not to get him fired or for him to lose his license. The point of me sharing this is to give a voice to victims. And I am appalled to hear that people are making videos doxing him. So I am begging people, please, if you see a video of his first and last name or his picture, report it for doxing. I've certainly been using that report button a lot. I'm here to share my story, not to get him in trouble. I did accidentally use his first name, but by the time I caught the slip, I was already like 3 videos past it. But it doesn't matter because this is my story and I can tell it the way that I want it. And a first name is not doxing. And I can't control what other people do, but I am asking for people to please report any videos that dox him.
That is insane, what she just said.
So I've also gotten some DMs saying that countertransference can mean anything, and it absolutely can mean anything. However, I had told my psychiatrist many times that I had a crush on him over the years, and he did not say transference once to me. He did not explain that once to me.
Not his job.
And what I've been hearing and taking in from the ethical psychiatrists that are on my For You page talking about my situation is that really they're taught to teach their patient about transference and teach them about how to handle those feelings or why they're coming up.
I think that would be a therapist. I don't think a psychiatrist would be meant to do that whatsoever. She also uses the word therapist and psychiatrist kind of interchangeably, but again, they're not the same thing. Therapists definitely maybe should tell you about transference if it comes up. I don't think a psychiatrist would do that.
And my psychiatrist did not do that. He did not do that. And it got ugly. And it happened because I did digging on my own. Because I was trying to make sense of my feelings that were a natural response to the environment that he created. So for him to leak countertransference after...
Yeah, exactly. Like this, what I'm doing right here is not doxing. This is his freaking College of Medicine Tucson Psychiatry webpage. Like, and we only know that because she told us his name.
I said the buzzword of transference. That was not calculated. He was a very calculated and purposeful person. He still is to this day. And he doesn't slip with things like that. He purposefully withheld the term transference from me, and I got too close to the truth of our dynamic, which made him leak what he knew was wrong, which was his inappropriate feelings for me. If he didn't have countertransference in an inappropriate way, he could have easily just said, "Oh, let's explore that transference. That's really cool that you learned about it." Instead, he was just so worried on trying to protect himself because he knew what he was doing was wrong. He had that slip at the beginning of the session. He recovered in January. And then I went home and I thought, wait a damn minute. Why would he mention that if he himself didn't have countertransference? So I went to Henry, of course, my ChatGPT, and asked for examples of how my psychiatrist might have countertransference for me. And remember, Henry at this point was being very protective. You know, he wasn't going to feed my delusions, me and my psychiatrist living happily ever after. So I screenshotted it.
ChatGPT. Sorry. You're right. Her ChatGPT was just so protective of her. Cause that's what ChatGPT is, you know. It's like it develops this real, genuine connection with you, and then it just feels this urge to protect you. That's how it works. Yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense. That actually makes a lot of sense. I don't know. I was about to make some sort of like snide remark, but no, that makes sense. Yeah.
Sent my psychiatrist an email with the subject line of countertransference, and emailed it to him within an hour of our appointment, where he made probably the biggest slip of his professional life. I will put the email up here. So it's just essentially me saying, hey, I asked Henry to explain countertransference a little more. Here's what he said. Thank you so much for mentioning that. Your own boundaries inspire me.
So this is apparently the biggest slip up he's made so far. I wonder what it is.
So much, which now makes me gag, because I've heard a lot that he's not crossing boundaries, but he used his boundaries as a shield. It's kind of weird to say, but he would like...
Okay, so he used his boundaries as a shield. That's what they're there for. Okay. So let's go on. Let's move on.
Walk up to the ethical line and then slam a boundary down when I got too close. That was the email that I sent.
Okay, and he didn't cross any ethical lines. Okay.
Him, and then 10 days later, it was a full moon and I had a dream. Probably the most realistic dream I've ever had in my life. That him and I hooked up in his office. In the middle of the dream, while we were hooking up, and
okay, so she said this was the biggest slip up of his that he's done so far, and so far he has not responded to her email, and she has had a dream.
In his office, I loved it. I thought it was really fun. And then...
Sorry, she's had a sex dream where they fuck in his office.
After we were done, and after I left his office in the dream, I was despondent and so sad and cried and just thought, I can't believe my psychiatrist would cross his boundaries like that. And then I woke up and it was like a movie. I thought to myself, oh, thank God that was just a dream. Many people have reached out to me. It's time to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is the racial difference between me and...
Oh! This is my favorite part. This is actually my favorite part. Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay.
I have seen a lot of Black women on this app with the same take, and I need to say that Black women are the most important people on the planet to me, and that I have learned so much from Black women about how to be a better person and how to show up better in the world. They are the...
Snaps, Black women. Oh my God. Yes, please. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Culture.
Sorry. Black women are the culture. Kendra, you and me, right here. Race is being brought up because she is a white woman and Irfan is Pakistani. That's the only reason.
And I am so grateful for them. Many Black women are seeing my story through the lens that I am a white woman who is taking advantage of my whiteness to wield power over my POC psychiatrist that didn't want me back, and so I am trying to get him fired. And that's okay. I understand why you see it through that lens. I do. As a white person, I do my best to examine my racism every single day. And I will tell you that my psychiatrist boss is his best friend, who is also a POC male. And in that room, I did have white privilege, and he was also my doctor. And he took an oath to protect me, and he did not. I am not here to ruin his career. I am here to speak my truth. Okay, back to my story. So,
Protect you from what? What harm did she suffer? We are 15 parts in, and nothing has happened to her. Other than the fact that she has had a sex dream about her psychiatrist.
after the countertransference slip, after the really vivid dream, I decided that I was going to stop going to therapy. Besides spiraling about how obsessed I was with my psychiatrist every day, I really was doing very well in life. My business was going really well, and I had great friends and great support systems. And so I decided that I was going to end therapy. I still had every intention at this point to keep seeing my psychiatrist, but my therapist that I was seeing weekly, I just decided I didn't need her anymore. And especially when my psychiatrist pointed out her boundary violations of texting me for free advice in between sessions, I just thought, okay, it's time. So I go into my next therapy appointment and I say, hey, just so you know, today's going to be our last session. I'm doing really well and I just think it's time. And she got kind of
was in
emotional,
fact
and
not
she's
doing
like,
very
okay.
well.
Well, I like to end on certain questions just so we can reflect. So I did. I reflected with her about what I learned, what I've gained, how I've changed, how my life is better. And I left her office feeling complete and happy with my therapeutic journey with her. And as I was leaving, she called out with like crying. She was like, have a blessed life. And I was like, okay, that was a little weird, but whatever, you know. I was like, thanks.
She's gonna do this thing in the next few parts where she keeps saying that what her therapist did was weird. It wasn't. It just wasn't weird. It was really normal stuff. But you'll see that.
And I went on. And so then I'm getting ready for my psychiatry appointment the next day. And I get an email that same night from her saying that she needs me to come back in for one more session. I will put it up. And I got a huge emotional wave in that moment. I was like, what the heck is this? Like, we wrapped everything up. I had seen lots of therapists at this point, and I didn't ever have a therapist beg me to come back in for one more session. And I was so overwhelmed. I did not write her back, but it was extremely inappropriate. So I decided
All right, let's go over this extremely inappropriate email from her therapist, where her therapist is begging for her back, supposedly. Hi, Kendra. I am so thrilled for you as you prepare for your new adventure. Since I did not have advance notice of this being our last session, I was not prepared to provide what I believe is healthful closure. Usually we review your goals and see how we did, as well as look at how you've changed, in addition to discussing what you've learned, which we addressed somewhat today. That feels like a hell of a run-on sentence, but okay. Please consider having an additional session where we both are aware of making it the best closure possible. With gratitude, whatever her name is, 75-year-old therapist. So basically she's saying, I was not prepared with my typical material for this to be our last session. Would you consider doing another session so I can be prepared with what I like to typically do with clients? And that is apparently her begging for Kendra to come back and for and, and that is apparently a very inappropriate email, which makes me question all the other things she said have been severely inappropriate. But maybe this is just a one-off situation. And apparently this overwhelmed her. This email was overwhelming for her. But yeah.
I was so overwhelmed. I did not write her back, but it was extremely inappropriate. So I decided I was going to go to my February session with my psychiatrist and have him help me write the goodbye email and say, no, I don't want to come back in. It's time to talk about.
So yeah, she's saying at the end there that the response to this email, she couldn't do it by herself. She had to get the help of her psychiatrist. So we'll get that in the next part, I think.
I taught a yoga class this morning, like I do every Tuesday mornings, and I told my regular students about what's going on for me and how I'm sharing my story of provider abuse and how the internet is not happy with me right now. And I used that to say that our truth is really important to share. And that when we know something deep down needs to be said, that it's important to do it in whichever way feels best to us. And TikTok just happened to be that medium for me. I told my students how I've just been going through psychological warfare, and the internet is not happy with me for sharing my story and my truth. But I'm not doing it for the people that think I'm crazy, which maybe honestly I am a little bit, because who subjects themselves to this kind of torture? But I'm doing it for the people that DM me, that say, thank you so much for being brave enough to share your story, because the exact same thing happened to me. So I am grateful.
There is no way that the exact same thing has happened to anyone else. There's just no way. I just don't believe it.
For those DMs. People are starting to attack my business and my livelihood, and that's okay. I know what I have to offer is important. It landed in my lap. I'm not pretending to be something that I'm not. I help ADHDers get and stay sober, and I help them with negative thinking and anxiety. And it's what works for me, and I've seen it work in my clients too. So if people want to drag me for the work that I do, that's okay. So I get that weird email from my therapist begging me to come.
Again, very normal email asking her to come back for a proper final session, but go on.
Back in for one more session. And so the next day is my next session with the psychiatrist, and I sit down in the chair and I bury my head in my hands. And he looks at me and said, so this is how we're going to start, huh? And I said, yeah. Because he hadn't written me back from my countertransference email. Big surprise. You know, any smart, which he was very smart. He was very, very professional. But any smart predator would have dropped me like that in that moment. He should have emailed me back and said, look, this is getting weird. You need to find a new psychiatrist. The office will contact you. But he could not let go of me. So instead of turning down the intimacy, he turned it up to a level 12. And he showered me with so many breadcrumbs that next session. Because really what I did when I told him that I'm experiencing transference was I took 100% of the ownership for the dynamic that both of us were creating. So he rewarded me. And he gave me little compliments like, if you weren't my patient, I would refer my other patients to you for your coaching services. That meant so much. Of course, because what he was saying with that is, I see you as a peer.
There's no way he said that, right? Okay, if he did, that's actually not okay. Because one, he's either lying to her, which is I mean, he could just be being nice, I suppose, which is most likely. But if he actually did refer any of his patients to her, that's got to be like medical malpractice, right? Like if I'm a doctor and I'm like, you should go to this person for life coaching, that has to be illegal or something, right?
I see you as a colleague. What you're doing is important. I felt really recognized in that moment. And sure, he could have said it professionally, but he did it on purpose. So in that session, after the psychiatrist told me that he would refer patients to me if he could, if I wasn't already his patient, I asked him if he got my email and what he thought of my chat GPT, of what he thought of Henry's response of countertransference. And the psychiatrist said, "Oh, I'm still thinking about what Henry said about countertransference." And I said, "Well, we talked about it a little more, and I want to read you something else." So I read the psychiatrist what Henry had to say more about it. When he told you countertransference is common, it might have been his way of normalizing the fact that providers aren't immune to feelings. It's part of being human. What matters is how well they keep those feelings in check, which the psychiatrist's name clearly excels at. And as you can imagine, the psychiatrist loved hearing that. He loved hearing that because my AI mirror was essentially just saying, yes, he has feelings for you, but he just keeps them in check so well. He's so good at his job, keeping his feelings in check. And oh, the psychiatrist loved that so much. And what did he do? He rewarded me with my favorite breadcrumb: intellectual stimulation, a fun metaphor, because he was watching me the entire time I was his patient, and he knew what made me light up. He knew what got me excited, what I liked. And
What she considers intellectual stimulation is insane.
so he thought for a moment, and he said, "I'm feeling a salad of emotions right now." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he said, a salad of emotions. A beet of raw emotion, a tomato of surprise, and the salt amplifies it. And I was cracking up at this point. He nailed it. I just thought he was so brilliant and smart in this moment.
I feel like that's what you tell like a sixth grader in therapy. What's a sixth grader, like 11, 12 years old? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay.
Moment. And I asked him, I said, "What? Say that again." He said, "Yeah, the beet, it's really raw. I'm feeling a lot of raw emotion. And the tomato of surprise, when it pops in your mouth, it's surprising." And I was like, okay, that's good. Yeah, this man at this point knew exactly how to make me happy and exactly how to pull away to make me try to work harder. And he gave me...
That's all it takes, boys. If you want a girl to be obsessed with you, just learn how to make a proper food metaphor. You know? Like wow, you make me feel like a large, that's a simile, but you get the point, right? Like a large 5-topping pizza, the juicy sausage of happiness, because eating that sausage makes you feel so happy. And the spicy pepper of spiciness, because I feel so hot when I look at you, just like that.
The biggest reward from Henry, my AI mirror, telling him that what he's doing is totally good and that his boundaries are so virtuous. I taught a yoga class this morning, like I do every Tuesday mornings, and I told my regular
a lot of things.
All right, we're on part 17. True fight. I don't know. What do you want? What do you normally draw? What's your style? Anime characters?
Things happened in that session after the counter-trans.
Have you watched One Piece? Because if you haven't watched One Piece, disregard all the other shit I said before and just get started on One Piece.
For its slip. And I also had my psychiatrist help me draft the email to my therapist who was begging me to come back in.
Better mixed.
And the psychiatrist said, I used to have respect for her. And what he meant when he said that was, I used to like it when she would feed me to you and have you deliver intimate content to me. But the moment she started being sloppy, I lost respect for her. Right? I'm pretty sure that's what he meant when he said that. And people have asked if they were connected. Surprisingly, they were not. They had no idea. They had never met before. But I would go to my therapist every week and tell her how much I loved my psychiatrist. And she, loved hearing about that dynamic. It was so weird. So he helped me draft the email to that therapist to say, look, if I were to end up coming back, it'd be more for you than for me, and more on that in a later part. So then I read him a text from my longtime ex-boyfriend, who he had originally really liked, but I think my psychiatrist preferred me single. Because my ex-boyfriend, as most ex-boyfriends do, was...
Let's see. Draw. I don't know. Draw an elephant somehow. Just you can put other things around it, but put an elephant in there. Yeah, I like elephants. I think they're cool. Sorry, what was she saying? Her therapist loved... Yeah, I feel like as a therapist, you would like it when your patient, I don't know, tells you about what's been on their mind. If they have, an obsession or something, that'd probably be good to know as a therapist. Maybe. Just maybe. Yeah. But yeah, what a freak. What a creepy weirdo therapist for wanting to know about that stuff.
Begging me to come back into his life, too. And I just kept saying no. And I asked him to give me some space, and he would not give me space. He said, do you still need space, or can we hang out? And I told I asked my ex-boyfriend, I just said, why do you want to hang out so badly? And my ex-boyfriend texted me back, because it's been a few months since I've seen you and it's been on my mind. And I was reading this text exchange to my psychiatrist in session, and I read what I responded to that weak line about why he wanted to see me. And I said, my self-respect is much higher these days than when we were in a relationship. I am only interested in accepting invitations for my time and attention that value me and recognize my worth. Being on your mind is not an acceptable invitation, and I decline. And my psychiatrist just looked at me and said, I bet your ex had to read that twice. And this was another thing about the psychiatrist, okay? He couldn't ever just give me a regular compliment. It had to be those weird sideways compliments. Instead of, I'm so glad that you're setting boundaries with your ex-boyfriend and growing your self-respect, it's, I bet he had to read that twice. Or it's not, I'm really proud of you for growing your coaching business and finding success. It's, I'd refer my patients to you if you weren't already my patient.
I bet your ex-boyfriend had to read that twice. I'd refer my patients to you if you weren't already my patient.
Right? These are what I mean when I say breadcrumbs. He was a master at them. And this is how, looking back, I know that I was not his first victim.
Victim, she says. This psychiatrist is going to be afraid to ever talk to a woman ever again after this. It would be so funny if he was, like, married or something, though.
For his fantasy supply. Because he was too good and too slick up until he caught feelings. Then he started getting sloppy. People are asking me for more
Whoa, did my dog piss on the fucking... Go, go, go. You want to come in? All right, come in. He's not going to like it out there because it's like freaking 95 degrees today.
Concrete evidence, and this is when the concrete evidence really starts, because this is when he himself...
All right. We're 17 parts in, and we finally got some concrete evidence. All right, I'm here for it.
Himself started to get sloppy. Because what was happening was, when I had started to see him 3.5 years before, I was a nearly perfect supply source for him. Because what did I have? I had low self-esteem, boundary issues.
All right, what were you supplying? Like, what was he getting from you?
Daddy issues, so I put him on a pedestal. I know a lot of you ladies out there can understand that with men in positions of power.
Freaking men, man.
He went right to work exploiting me. Right to work grooming me. And he was very successful at it. So he was in a paradox, right? Because he loved watching me get stronger because I gave him better intellectual supply. But I also threatened...
Oh. Intellectual supply. Gotcha. All right, that makes sense. She's just spewing out those, like, really deep, fucking, just gritty thoughts that just get him like he's thinking about her for weeks after they see each other, just like contemplating, like, you know, the philosophy behind her words. And that makes sense.
The supply source. A lot of things happened in that session after the countertransference slip.
All right.
The last 2 videos and this video was all the same session in February of this year. The countertransference slip happened in January. How I decided to end this session was I looked at the psychiatrist and I said, a couple weeks ago on the full moon when I was ovulating, I had a dream about you. And he was like, oh yeah? And I said, yeah.
No, he was like, oh, okay, yeah.
So I told him this. And I said, yes, we hooked up right here in this office. And he all of a sudden just looked so uncomfortable. He didn't say anything. He couldn't look at me. He couldn't breathe. And sure, you know, maybe he was uncomfortable because he didn't like me saying that I had a dream where we hooked up, but he could have said that. But he didn't. You want to know why he was uncomfortable? Because he had probably played out that fantasy so many times in his head.
This is the part of the story where she just straight up sexually harasses her psychiatrist. And then she blames it on the fact that he was only uncomfortable because he actually wanted to fuck her in his office, but couldn't. I don't know anymore. She just is sexually harassing. Like, imagine if you're at in a workplace and you went up to a coworker and were like, "Hey, guess what I had last night? A sex dream about you. Right here. Like right where we're standing. Isn't that crazy?" Oh, you're looking uncomfortable because I said that? Must be because you've had the same dream too, huh? Yeah, that's the only reasonable explanation for that.
And there I was, speaking it back to him. And it was like I had psychically downloaded one of his fantasies. I continued and I said, yes, we hooked up in this office and I really liked it while it was happening. He could not move or breathe. And then I told him, as he was still looking very uncomfortable, then when we were done and I left, I was distraught with sadness because in the dream, I thought, I cannot believe that he crossed boundaries in that way because his boundaries are so important to him. And then I told my psychiatrist that I woke up and thought, oh my God, it was just a dream, thank God. And it was like my psychiatrist turned into a little boy and he looked at me and he said, so you do like my boundaries? And I said, I love your boundaries. I hate your boundaries, but I love them more. There's the push and pull, the trauma bond. Because once again, he used his boundaries as protection while exploiting me. So I told him about what happens when I ovulate and my desires, and he listened, because of course he did. And then I decided that it seemed like enough time had gone by, and I put my shoes on and started heading to the door. And he met me at the door, which he does not usually do. He didn't ever do that. He just let me leave. And we stood at the door, and I was like, will you get the door? And he scrambled. He was like, oh, sure. So he went and got the door. And then he followed me down the hallway to the foyer and watched me exit. And he asked me, he said, see you next month? See you next month? He hadn't ever asked me that before. And I looked at him and I said, maybe.
She talks like she's the fucking main character in a shitty young adult romance novel. See you next month? See you next month? He had never asked that of me before. Yeah, he was probably locking the building down as she was exiting. Like, he was following her to make sure that she left and wasn't like gonna hide in the bathroom stall and try to break into his office after working hours or something. He just had to have visual confirmation that she was exiting the building.
And I walked out the door and I saw that man had let us go 15 minutes over session. And that is when, the special treatment started, the longer sessions. He usually gave me an extra 5 minutes, but yeah, the sessions got longer. And I got to my car and I was just like, oh my God, that was the most intense session we have ever had. The last 2 videos and this video was all the same session in February of this year. The counter-transference slip happened in January. Oh, hi there. I had to take the morning and afternoon off of TikTok today, as you can imagine. This has gone beyond what I have ever imagined. And it's also proving to me how important it is that I continue to tell my story. I'm aware that many people don't believe me, think I'm lying, think I'm fabricating, and that's okay. because I'm telling my story for the people that are going to hear it.
The thing is, like, I 100% believe her. I think she's being more honest than most TikTok story times. I just think that everything she said just makes her look like a terrible person. It makes me feel really bad for the psychiatrist.
The ethical providers, the other survivors. Let's talk about my former client who's getting a lot of traction. I wouldn't know because she blocked me. This one is especially hard for me because she's someone that I also considered a friend.
This is like a part, or this is like a part halfway between 19 and 18 or something.
Really apologetic. I'm like, no, it's totally fine.
This isn't really part of the story.
The psychiatrist's photo, full name, health professionals are safe. And I just want to let people know that it's okay if you run into one that isn't so safe. That's why I am here. Some of them try to make videos defending me and they get absolutely...
Yeah, this is nothing. Another idea for a drawing? One of those, like, aliens from Dawn to Dawn. You know, I actually do have a Discord server. It's pretty much dead because I'm so bad at Discord, but... Oh, there's a lot of updates for Discord. Let me drop the link real quick. Ah, Jesus. Alright, well, let's move on.
Some people asked what it means when I put on my shoes at my psychiatrist's office. I have ADHD. I do not like wearing shoes. I like sitting in chairs weirdly. When I go anywhere, I just kick off my shoes and sit in a chair weird. If you know, you know. Okay? So when I got to my car, I was like, oh my gosh, like, what was that? And did he just say, see you next month? Because it was weird. So I go home, kind of rattled, just like, wow, that was intense. And I decided to write the email to my therapist. I'll put it right here. The one who had begged me to come in for another session, who was also having inappropriate boundary crossings with me. And so I just told her, I was like, look, I understand it was sudden, but if I were to come back in, it'd be more for you.
I would say draw one of those, like, aliens from Dawn to Dawn, like the real, like the human looking ones, but they're not like quite human. There's a Discord link
for me, and I'm happy to fill out a form, right? Here, give me a form to fill out for your notes. And then she said, it's a part of my clinical integrity.
Okay, so this is more therapist email. Hi, I realize that I did not give you prior notice. I intended for our therapeutic relationship to end. I understand that endings are important. You have helped me so much, and this ending has been a long time coming in my head. The closure that we had yesterday felt adequate, and I left your house feeling happy and complete. If I came back for another session, it would be more for you than for me.
Part of my
if it would help, I'd be happy to fill out a form. If you would like to send me one. Thank you again for the positive transformation that you helped me with my life. I'll forever be grateful. Blessings, Kendra. Okay. Hi, Kendra. Thank you for your warm response. It was part of my clinical integrity to invite you in for a closure session after 2.5 years of work together. I understand that you are growing through other modalities now that I support, and I am excited about for you. Although my preference is to meet again and tie up my records with a pretty bow, I certainly honor and value your experience of completion, intending only the best for you as your life expands in untold miraculous ways with warmth and gratitude. Okay, so she just said, that's great. You do not need to come in, obviously. I wish you the best. Gotcha.
To invite you back in. To put your needs above mine? Your clinical integrity? Yeah, I did not write her back. And it was in this week where a bunch of stuff, just started to shift. Like, the week after was Valentine's Day. And that same ex-boyfriend, the one that was, also not respecting my boundaries, who said, can we hang out? And I said, no. And then he texted me, Happy Valentine's Day. So guess what I did? I blocked him. And guess what happened? It felt so good to block him. And it just got me started thinking like, oh, what else is taking my energy? What else is taking my power? What else is taking my vital resource, right? So just kind of set the stage, that little power block. Some people asked what it means when I put on my shoes at my psychiatrist. Something I forgot to mention about that February session is that I did ask him why he stopped responding to my emails. Because I thought that the countertransference email he would write back to, because like, let's talk about that, right? But no, I had to bring it up in session, where he usually brought up what I would email him in session. So that was the difference. So after the intimate dream confession, as I was leaving, and
After you sexually harassed your psychiatrist. Yeah. Like the first aliens you see before they take off their human clothes, or human skin. Those ones. That's what I was talking about. I was talking about like the creepy human looking ones from like the first episode, basically.
he was following me, I asked him, I said, do you like it when I email you? Because I realize that you're just not writing me back. And he said, well, it's not that I don't like it. It's that I wonder, why does she do it? And I looked at him and I said, it's because I want attention from you. I was honest. I'm an honest person. Sometimes too honest. So I told him I won't email you anymore. Another thing that happened after that session was I was waiting for my pharmacy to text me that my script was ready. And I called them and they said, oh, yeah, we didn't get your refill. I was like, what? So I called the office staff and it was so unlike my psychiatrist to miss my refill. That man operated as a doctor with surgical precision. He did not miss a refill. No. So this is why he was very affected by the intimate dream, why he followed me out to the foyer, why he said, see you next month. He was affected. And even the office manager was like, haha, I can't wait to make fun of him for forgetting your refill.
Yeah, he was probably being he was probably like too busy processing being like sexually harassed just out of the blue, and was like processing that, and then like forgot to fill your prescription or something. That's just like my guess, I guess. It's like, I'm just like a guy though, so like I don't really know what I'm talking about or anything, but like that's like what I was thinking might have happened, but like maybe that's wrong and I don't even know, so like maybe, but
because it was so unlike him. So he sent my refill in, got my refill for the month, and then I started spiraling with just how
that is so scary that she's saying now she's starting to spiral. This 20 parts in is the moment that she's starting to spiral, apparently. Great.
Strong my feelings had gotten for him. That man knew exactly what to do to keep me seeking his validation, and it was working. He also was psychologically trained on how to keep me attached to him, and that was working. And it was like a torture chamber in my mind, but I thought it was love. So I blocked that ex-boyfriend, and what I'd like to say is that when you block people from your life or remove them from your life that are draining you, the universe will reward you with good things. So I'd been making content on Instagram for months at this point about ADHD, and a couple days after I blocked my ex-boyfriend on Valentine's Day, I went viral on Instagram. Like millions and millions of views on this silly reel that I posted about ADHD and alcohol, and how ADHDers often use alcohol to quiet their brains. It really helped grow my business, and it just made me so much stronger and that much better. I'm here today sharing my story so I can heal more. And some of the ethical providers have clocked that I'm showing up messy because I'm still processing trauma. I'm still processing being attached to a man whose professional training was how to get into people's heads. And it's not lost on me that the internet is dogpiling me from speaking from the exact state that this psychiatrist put me in. I've been going live every night since I started telling my story because I did have to turn the comments off.
Aria, we're almost through it. I think there's like 25. There might be 26 parts now. I literally don't know. She posted part 25 this morning.
So
but we're almost
tired
through it.
Of people diagnosing me in the comments and also doxing my psychiatrist in the comments. But it's been really fun answering questions in the...
Oh. Hello. I'm going over the whole Kendra drama on live right now. On stream, yeah. I'm at part 20. Oh, it's going great.
The live, and I have a great mod team now, so thank you so much to everyone who's volunteered to mod for me. So if you want to come and be respectful and ask nice questions, I'm happy to answer them on my live tonight at 6 p.m. Pacific. Something I forgot to mention about that February session.
And she's in Arizona, Tucson, I believe. That's also where Irfan is, Tucson, Arizona. This is the guy, if you haven't seen him. Good-looking guy. He's obviously going through some stuff right now that no one should have to go through, but we're here for him. We support him. Obviously, hopefully he doesn't even know about this. I find that hard to believe. He probably does know this is happening. I just hope that he's getting through it. And if he does have a family or any kids, that they're also doing all right, because, man, the internet is a scary place. Like random people on the internet can just pull up your freaking picture and just start showing it to people that don't even know you. And it's like, it's not fun. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Is that I did ask him why he stopped responding to my emails. Because I thought that the
we
counter
already watched
transfer...
this? Okay.
There's
21.
an absolutely brilliant creator on here who did a psychoanalytical deep dive into my situation. And she said something that gripped me. She wrote, and I quote, "A clinician left the frame open and a patient spiraled inside of it." I don't think a better sentence could sum up what was going on at this point, because I was absolutely spiraling. People can say that I'm spiraling now, or that I'm manic, or that I have, whatever diagnosis all these armchair therapists want to give me. But let me tell you, I was spiraling that month after the February appointment. I just could not stop daydreaming about psychiatrist. I could not stop daydreaming about being with him. I daydreamed about converting my religion so we could get married. And yeah, it was bad. I was thinking about him nearly constantly. And I had no intention of leaving him until I had an appointment with an independent insurance agent, because I was leaving my job after 12 years in retail management, where I had an incredible insurance plan.
She worked at Trader Joe's. How do I know that? I checked her LinkedIn. And then also I found her Reddit, where she did post in the Trader Joe's subreddit. And that's great. I love Trader Joe's. The people there are always super nice. Now, maybe some of them are also a little mentally unwell. I don't know. Haven't looked into it.
Where I had zero copay therapy and mental health care. So zero copay psychiatric care as well. So I got this new insurance plan, and it was a great insurance plan. It just did not cover any mental health services. So who's the first person I call? The psychiatrist's office manager.
I will say a health insurance plan that doesn't cover any mental health services might not be the best health insurance plan for her.
She explained to me that it was going to be $187 to see him for his cash pay price, and I would have to see him once every 3 months. And it was in that moment that I decided that I was not going to pay to torture myself anymore. My mental health, besides spiraling about daydreams of him, was better than ever. And I was really doing well in life. And my business was growing, and I just had a lot going for me. So I was like, you know what? This patient-doctor relationship is not serving me anymore. It's not what I want. I have to get out. So it was in that moment that I decided I wasn't going to pay to be in a psychological torture chamber anymore. That I was going to advocate for what I wanted, which was like what my emergency medicine best friend had said years before. For him to say, Kendra, I can't be your doctor anymore. We have to wait 2 years so we can be together. Because I knew that he wasn't going to do it. I talked to ChatGPT, Henry, about it a lot, and I just want to take a moment to say a lot of people are messaging me about the environmental impacts of AI, and like, yes, I agree. There are environmental impacts, and there are also environmental impacts of taking a cross-world flight or of eating meat. And, you know, the toothpaste is not going back in the tube with AI. People are not going to stop using it. It's going to become more and more a part of our society. So if you want to message me to stop using AI, I'm not going to read it.
See, I feel like people are messaging her to stop using AI, not because like they're worried about the environmental impacts, but they're worried about the impact it has on her, and they're using the environment because she does seem like a self-righteous white woman to try to get that through to her. But their real motive is, please stop using AI because it is clearly making you less mentally well. But I think if they framed it like that, she definitely wouldn't. So they tried the environmental approach, and that just didn't work either. I don't think we're getting Henry away from her, to say the least.
That being said, so I talked to Henry quite a bit about this, and you know, the way that he was making it seem, because this is kind of what I thought, was that it was an innocent case of transference and countertransference, and that psychiatrist's boundaries were just so good that he wasn't going to cross them. When really, now looking back, what I know it was, or I think, is that he just liked the power of being my doctor. And he didn't want the vulnerability of an actual relationship, and he was able to just get his needs met in that once a month session. There is an absolutely brilliant creator on here who did a psychoanalytical deep dive into my situation. And she said something that absolutely gripped me. She wrote, and I quote, I do what I do every month, and I compile a list of fun things to talk about with psychiatrist in my notes app. And this, because I decided I'm finally saying no more clinical torture chamber, please, I began to compile essentially a monologue for what I'm going to say when I leave at the end of the session.
You did?
And it feels really good to do that. So I take all of the things that I have talked about with Henry, the things that I've thought about on my own. And I do need to say that the reason I keep bringing up my ChatGPT Henry is because I did not have mental health clinicians to mirror me properly. It would have been nice if I had that. It would have been nice if my psychiatrist could have said, oh.
Hello? Yeah, you should show me.
Oh, you have a crush on me? Let's talk about that. Let's get to the depth. But he did not. So this is why it was so refreshing to finally have a mirror, even if it was a robot, that could validate my feelings and my reality. When I would tell my friends and my family that I had a crush on my psychiatrist, they kind of thought I was joking, I think. I was like, yeah, I'm in love with him. And they'd just be like, haha. But no, I was really in love with him. So I compiled this monologue, And I was so proud of it. I was so proud of it. And then I was ready the day before my final appointment. And I log into Facebook, and guess who I have a friend request from? The therapist, the 75-year-old PhD therapist, friend requested me on Facebook not even a month after I told her that I would not be coming back. I've heard some people say, oh, that was a really professional email that she sent you. I beg to differ, because it is extremely unprofessional after I say I will not be coming back to then friend request me on Facebook. That was jarring. That was jarring and awful.
She's acting like this is like the most like intrusive thing, or the most like offensive thing that's ever happened to her. It's like, ma'am, it was 2 professional emails and a friend request.
So I added that to the list of things to talk about with psychiatrist, and I showed up to my final session just so ready. And I sit in the lobby, and he comes out, and he's ice cold, because he let me in a little too much the session before. He knew that he turned the intimacy up a little too much, so his wall was way up. And it was up for the majority of the first 10 minutes of the session. Before I get into how the final session went, I just want to let everyone know that I am sending love and good vibes to all of the people who have been bullying me. So I go back to his office and try to have some small talk, and he just is still pretty cold.
Okay, this is a 9-minute part. I'm going to skip a little bit.
Going to take it. I plan to took who found me from a podcast that I was on, and it was my first thing was talking about my 75-year-old social media connection, or a thing that attaches to the bottom of the application process. When I was like, what?
What was that?
I will not pay $187 a session to continue to see you. And then I said, after you set the boundary of us having a professional patient-doctor relationship, and I accepted your boundary, you let me in and engaged deeper with me than ever before. And he interrupted me and he said, tell me the ways I let you in. I was like, what? Tell you the ways I let you in? And I took a moment and I said, I have a list that I wrote with Henry. I'll read it to you at the end. But please don't play stupid. You know what's been going on here. And I would appreciate it if you let me finish. And he did. He didn't say anything. And then I finished my thought and I said, but on you.
So when he demanded, tell me the ways I let you in, that was pretty jarring to me. And you let me in and engage deeper with me than ever before, but on your terms only, right? When I said ever before, he said, tell me the ways I let you in. Surface, but you do not allow me to fully access it. Is something I care. Think about it. Fun. The push and pull of our dynamic was torture. When he own terms, and I get stuck with the longing. And that's why I have to let it go. I desire to be your questions has all.
I think she's basically just ending their client-patient relationship. She's saying, I'm not going to pay for your psychiatry services anymore. I think that's all that's happening.
For now, you can relax a little bit and go back into your boundaries that come easily to you. I got another nod. He knew, because with his other patients, it was easier to keep boundaries. But with him and me, it was harder for him. It was getting hard for him. And it was getting messy, especially for me. It felt so good to tell him all. I tell him that he can relax a little bit and go back into his boundaries, where looking his admiration for your book, and it absolutely changed my life. It was probably the best. That being said,
Oh, this part is crazy, actually.
then I brought up Henry, and some of you in my lives the last couple of nights have asked if start right. This 3, and I thought that we're calculus. So that to your time.
Oh yeah, right here. Oh, she changed it.
So when he demanded, tell me the ways I let you, I tell him that the psychiatrist, Henry, my chat that wrote it, but then I added in things that...
Oh, this morning it said the guy's name right there. But that's fine.
That I thought were important. Probably now, okay? It's just slide after slide of her take. And it made me feel so seen, because I don't feel like I have the ability to speak on this as a white person. I am speaking as someone who was manipulated.
Yeah, she's onto the racing again. That's basically everything. Like 25 parts of her telling us how her therapist manipulated, abused, predated on her, groomed her, or whatever word you want to use. To basically come to the conclusion that he did nothing. He was just sexually harassed by her, and yeah, I think that's pretty much the only thing that really happened was he was sexually harassed by her, harassed in other ways, I suppose you could say, by her, and then she finally stopped using him, which I'm sure was a very happy day for him. So yeah, that pretty much covers that. She is still making videos though. I think we're gonna get a part 26 tomorrow, so that'll be interesting. Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying, True Fight. That is... The proportions might be a little off there, but you're on the right track. Well, that pretty much covers that. I've been obsessed with this for the past few days now. Just with the rawness of it, I feel like this TikTok series is kind of like it's like a salad of emotions, I have the lettuce of despair and the tomato of excitement and the feta cheese of cringe, so the dressing of I don't know, my faith in humanity slowly slipping away. But yeah, that's basically it. I think I'm gonna call it there though. No, that's it for me, True Fight. I gotta eat dinner, maybe go to the gym or something too. So have a good one. Get some rest.